Good morning. I'm out here in a little back lane of Hitchin, trying to gather my thoughts after a day of campaigning yesterday. It was a surreal day. This morning I've woken up to find that the two big major events, policy launches of the two major parties, are Rishi Sunak and the Conservative Party campaigning on reintroducing national service, and Keir Starmer campaigning on votes for 16-year-olds. And Nigel Davey of the Liberals sitting on some boat in Brighton Harbour campaigning for what I don't know what. Whereas on the high street yesterday, on behalf of the Reform Party, people were coming to talking to me about the serious things in their lives. They came to talk about mass immigration and how this was disturbing their very culture. They came to talk about housing needs, a real shortage of housing. A housing shortage of 1.4 million houses before we let in 1.2 million people over the last 2 years. What was I going to do about housing? Well, I was able to tell them I knew quite a lot about housing, having built a house and advised house building companies. And the first thing we're going to do is end the monopoly of the large house builders. The land has to be taken away from them if they're not developing land fast enough. Also, we have to encourage small house builders back into the market again, because not all developments are of 700 or 800. There are some lovely infill developments in villages and small towns that need to be done. But that's not going to happen until we give access to the small builders. People wanted to talk about what we were doing about hospitals. The dire situation in Watford General Hospital, but more locally in Stevenage Lister Hospital. And I was able to say that the whole of all the Reform candidates in Hertfordshire had got together last weekend and decided that we should campaign for a brand new large teaching hospital in Hatfield. It's where it should have originally gone, except for Labour Party corrupt influence, and we're campaigning for that now. A really important development, because we cannot let in 600,000, 700,000 people a year without developing the infrastructure to look after them and us. People wanted to talk about a broken Britain. They wanted to talk about the post office scandal. They wanted to talk about the blood scandal. They wanted to talk about Grenfell Tower and how we'd become a culture which allowed such a fire as Grenfell Tower to take place in the wealthiest borough of London. And above all, they wanted to talk about the attack on 2,000 young, vulnerable white girls by Muslim grooming gangs. But none of this was spoken about by the three main leaders yesterday. I was able to talk about it. I was able to talk about bringing in a proper law of misconduct in public office. I was able to explain that this law was a common law and completely and utterly out of date. It caught young bobbies having a bonk with their girlfriend in the back of a police car, but it didn't touch those criminals, those people being paid the big bucks who decided to turn a blind eye and allow the corruption to take place in their society. And what was even worse, none of this was being talked about. And this morning, when you open your Sunday Telegraph or your Sunday Times, there is not a single mention of the Reform Party and its policies. The world's out of touch. And then finally, at 3 o'clock, after a very successful day of campaigning, the video streaming TikTok YouTube clan came out on the high street and made life so unpleasant. The minority drove us away. I phoned the police because it was getting quite uncomfortable. There was no policeman in a patrol car in the area. Eventually somebody told me that there was an event going on in the market square where there were 2 PCSOs. So I walked up to them and they said that they couldn't leave their event. But thankfully, common sense took place and they decided to take a stroll down the high street, doing what police used to do, and that was the mere presence calming things down, which is exactly what happened on this occasion. But what does this demonstrate? It demonstrates that we are desperately short of police, and therefore Reform's policy of an extra 40,000 police on the streets is one, if above all, is one that should cause you to vote for us. So thank you for listening, and please vote Reform on the 4th of July, for our country really needs you. Thank you. Bye-bye.